Hello and welcome to IP Study video lectures. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 5 of grade 7 social science. The chapter name is Tribes, Nomads and Settled Communities. Now, who were the tribal groups? If you see our ancient and medieval history, there were many groups which did not live with the mainstream society. They in fact lived in forest, hilly areas and other remote areas which were difficult to be accessed. Now these communities, because they were not part of the mainstream society, they did not believe in the caste-based society that was prevalent in the mainstream society. In fact, they had their own rituals, their own customs and their own lifestyle. So tribal society consists of close-knit clans or groups of related families, which means that they are the descendants of common ancestors. Now, because they have common ancestors, the members are bonded to each other with the kinship bonds, right? So they have some kind of a connection with the other family that is also the part of the same tribe. They are the original and indigenous people living in a particular area. So what we call as the native population of an area. So they are the original, you can say, population of that area because they have been living in that area for a very long period of time. Now each tribal society has its own distinct lifestyle, customs and belief system. Often we see that they also have their own unique languages which they have developed among their own tribes. So yes, they live in the far off areas like forests, hills and deserts as we discussed before, and they are very much familiar with the surroundings of their area. In fact, they live their life in harmony with the nature, with everything that the nature has to provide in that area. They try to use the resources available in that area to its maximum, and you can say they live in harmony as well. They do not try to destroy the nature, but try to live in a way that they can protect the nature as well, because if we see that their belief system, their trade, every element of their life is actually connected with nature. Now sometimes these tribal groups may have disagreements with the mainstream society, but at times we also see that they find a good balance. They maintain a good balance with the mainstream society because they need the food grains, they need the different resources which a village can provide to them. So they exchange those material, those resources with the village people. They can give them fruits, they can give them jute and other things which are available in the forest, and exchange them for the resources which the villages are able to provide them. So we also see in history that there are many cases where the caste-based societies and the tribal groups have maintained a good relationship. If we look at modern India, we can see that these tribes are found in states of Kerala, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, the northeastern region, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Jharkhand and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So we can see they are widely spread in various parts of India, especially central India and northeast India. If we look, there are many tribal groups that live in these areas. Now let us discuss about some of these tribal groups. Some of the major tribal groups includes the Gonds, Santals, Khasis, the Angamis, Bhils, Bhutias and the Great Andamanis. Now, where are these found? Let's talk about Santals first. Santals are mostly found in the states of West Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. The Munda tribe is basically found in Jharkhand. However, some of them have also relocated in areas of Bengal, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Then there is the Khasi tribe, which is mainly found in the hills of Meghalaya, and some of them also are found in the region of Assam. Then we have the Bhils tribe, which we see is more widely spread. This is the largest tribe of South Asia, so we can see that they are present in Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, West Bengal, Tripura, and throughout Central Asia we can see that they have their presence. Then the Angamis tribe is mainly found in the state of Nagaland. The Bhutia tribe is of the Tibetan origin, and that is why we see that on the high mountainous region we can see some of the descendants of this tribe. Then there is the Chenchos tribe, which is found in the districts of Mehboob-nagar, Nalgonda. Basically these are the regions in present day Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Then the Gons tribe is found in many districts around Central Asia. They are also very widely spread, especially in the Bastar district of Chhattisgarh, as well as parts of Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So we can see that the tribes are found in different geographical regions. Some of them have traveled from one place to another, and that is why we see that originally they might be from one particular region, but because of their traveling they are found in other regions as well. If we look at the occupation of various tribes, we see that many tribes have settled down over time and they practice agriculture, while still many are hunter gatherers, right? So they hunt for the animals as their food, and many tribes have the combination of two, because as we said, their life revolves around nature and they try to make the best use of the resources available. So it can happen that in a particular tribe some people are practicing agriculture while others are hunter gatherers. Now yes, some tribes also are nomadic in nature. They move from one place to another. They control the land and pastures jointly. Pastures are the places where you take your cattle for grazing. So they manage the resources available around them in a way that it can be shared. And even the farmland, we see in many cases that there is a common farmland in which all the farmers come together and they work and they divide the whatever revenue is coming from that land, they divide it among themselves. Now let's talk about the occupation of the Mundas. Now Mundas have been known for their hunting skills for centuries. So most of them have practiced hunting as their main occupation, but with time some of them have also transitioned to agriculture. So maybe some of the Munda tribes have moved to areas where agriculture is possible, and if we consider agriculture, it is a more of a safer occupation where there is no threat to life and injuries. So that is why some of the Mundas have transitioned to agriculture as well. But yes, traditionally they did not have a lot of land of their own, and that is why they have relied on labor work if they have to practice agriculture. Now let's talk about the Santhal tribe. Now Santhal tribe is quite interesting. They have historically dependent on the forest for their livelihood. So they have practiced different occupations which are related to forest. So they have engaged in hunting, fishing and cultivation as well. So all these things are related to nature only: hunting, fishing and cultivation, wherever these things are possible, because it all depends on the geographical area. So if fishing is possible in that area, they have tried that. If a lot of animals are found, so they have engaged in hunting as well, and if the soil is fertile, they have engaged in cultivation. Now they are also known for the musical equipments that they make, and also making mats, baskets, etc. So basically they are known for their art and craft as well. They are very skilled craftspersons who have taken use of the various resources that are available in their forest and developed useful products from that. Now let's talk about the Bhutia tribe. Now this is majorly found in Sikkim, and the 14% population of Sikkim still consists of the Bhutia tribe. Now they are mostly engaged in agriculture, while some of them are also herdsmen. So it all depends on what kind of geographical area they are found in, and accordingly they practice their occupation. But yes, most of the occupations practiced by different tribal groups revolve around nature. Now some of the tribes are also pastoral nomads. Now who are pastoral nomads? These are basically the people who move from one place to another along with their cattle, right? So a nomad is a person who moves from one place to another. We all know that. So pastoral nomads are the people who move, but they move along with their cattle. One of the major example of this is the Banjara tribe, right? Now because Banjara tribe move from one place to another, they are able to exchange the goods that they have with the village people. So if the village people can provide them with grains and maybe cloth, so the Banjara community exchanges them for things that Banjara community is able to provide them. So it could be some jute products or milk, because they have cattle, they can produce, they can provide them with these things. So Banjara tribe, as we discussed before, it is known for its commercial exchanges. So they get grains and vegetables from the farmers and take them to the cities and towns and other urban markets. So you can also see they are kind of a middleman as well, because whatever products they are getting from the village people, they are not using all of them, but some of them they go and sell in the cities and towns as well, right? So they are kind of a middleman between the sellers of villagers and the buyers of the cities. So we can see that Banjaras provide this very important services in transporting the goods from villages to the cities, right? Now let's move to the next topic, new caste and hierarchies. Now as time went by, we see that many tribal societies became part of the mainstream society, which involved a Hindu caste based system. So because these societies were caste based, we see that the tribal group which became a part of it also was assigned a particular jati. Rajputs is a prime example of this. If you look at the Rajputs, they were traditionally they belonged to the peasant or pastoral communities, but in between 11th and 12th centuries, many of them became part of the mainstream society where they belong to the Kshatriya caste. Now some of these tribal groups did not want to be part of the Hindu caste system, and that is why they converted to Buddhism, Islam, or sometimes even Christianity in the later part of the medieval period to become the part of the mainstream society, right? So some of them became the part of Kshatriya clan or some other caste group, but if they did not feel that they were given a good status in the society, they even converted to some of the other available religions of the mainstream society. Now let's discuss about two of the most important tribal groups that existed in the medieval period. These are Gonds and Ahoms. So let's first discuss about the Gonds. Now Gonds are referred to by their tribal dialect, that is Gondi. So Gondi is a tribal dialect it is a language that is spoken by the Gonds. But as we see that this tribal group is not only confined to one geographical area, it is present in various areas: Madhya Pradesh, Eastern Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Northern Andhra Pradesh and Western Odisha. So we can see Gonds are spread out in various regions, so they might also be speaking some of the languages which are similar to the regions along which they belong. Now the Gonds were able to establish their empire much before the Delhi Sultanate, right? So it is written that they established their empire before the Turkish invasion, and by Turkish invasion we means the foundation of Delhi Sultanate. So, but yes, their real power, even though they've existed since the 10th century, their real power rose after the decline of the Delhi Sultanate. So we can say around 1500s that they became very important, right? So in between, in fact, 15th to 18th century, we can see that they were most powerful. Now, even the Akbarnama talks about the Gonds kingdom. It was known for its very centralized and a very good, effective administration, where the whole kingdom, the Gara Katanga, was divided into 70,000 villages. Now these 70,000 villages were divided into different Gars, and each Gar had 84 villages known as Chaurasi, right, which is the Hindi word for 84. So these Gars were divided into Chaurasi, and the Chaurasis were also further divided into Barhots, which means 12 villages. So we can see how effective the administration was, where there was clear way in which every region was organized. Now there were some kingdoms in the Deoghar Nagpur region as well, and Chandra Sirpur in the south region as well, right? Now Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh is considered as the main center of the Gond power. In fact, the Gond kingdom here, known as Gondwana, located in the Madhya Pradesh region, was the major center of the Gond power. Now, the interesting thing about the Gond kingdom is that even though we see that Delhi Sultanate had become very powerful, and later on the Mughals had also become very powerful, and Mughals in fact conquered many regions of India, but still we see that they were able to maintain their independence, right? In fact, we say that their real power was after the decline of the Delhi Sultanate. So when Mughal emperors were so powerful, when the Mughal empire had become so powerful, even then we see that the Gonds were able to establish a very large kingdom. Now yes, their power declined a little bit when the large states emerged, when Brahmins became more powerful, but yes, they continued to have a strong kingdom. They wanted to be called Rajputs. It's a very important fact because we see that throughout medieval history, Rajputs are considered as a warrior tribe, as a warrior group, and many tribal groups also wanted to become Kshatriyas or the Rajputs, where they can have a good status, a high status in the mainstream society. Aman Das is a very important ruler of Gara Katanga, and he assumed the title of Sangram Shah. His son Dalpat was another important ruler who married Rani Durgavati. So even though Rani Durgavati lost the battle, but the way she fought was quite brave, and that is why she is still remembered as a great queen. But after her death, we see that the kingdom eventually became weak, and by the end of 18th century, we see the decline of the kingdom. The city of Nagpur was actually founded by the Gond king, right? Now let's discuss about another important tribe, and this is Ahoms. Now Ahoms are considered as a branch of the Shan tribe. They mainly dominated in the area of Assam. We see that they were able to establish their rule in Assam in the year 1228, and for about 6 centuries they ruled in that region. They are believed to have migrated from present-day Myanmar. where we see that the Thai prince Sukhafa comes to Assam, and for 600 years we see that they are able to establish a very strong kingdom. Now, over time we see that the Ahom state adopted the Assamese language. In fact, we see that the Assamese language flourished under them. They maintain very good records, and their chronicles are known as Buranjis. In the Battle of Sarai Ghat, we see that the Ahoms are able to defeat the Mughal forces who wanted to capture the Assam region, but they are able to defeat the Mughal forces and consolidate their empire. After this, we see that the empire becomes a little weak, but there is another important king, Rudra Singh, who is able to strengthen the Ahom kingdom. But yes, by the early 19th century, we see that there are several attacks over this kingdom, and for a very brief time, for about just 5 years, that Burmese also invaded Assam and established their rule. But by 1826, we see that the British are able to overthrow them, and after this we see that the Ahom tribe is not able to rule, right? So in this chapter we have studied about several tribes that were important in the medieval period. We all should remember that India is a place of great diversity, where not only the mainstream society but many tribal groups have played a very important role, and as true Indians we should respect the history of these tribes and respect them for their past, right? So we will meet again in the next video lecture. Thank you so much for watching this.